Folks, this is truly ominous. A recurring theme in every Donald Trump presidential campaign is his persistent public threat to punish the media, using the power of law or the state to do it. Well, now that he's back in office, he's making good on that threat, leveraging the power of the FCC to punish media networks that he has mentioned by name, and also protecting Fox News. This is a bombshell story that nobody is talking about, and we need to. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. Yeah, again, all eyes need to be on this. Just as a refresher, just in case you have not been familiar with Donald Trump's decade-long threats to punish the media. He did it in 2016, did it in 2020, did it in 2024. It's just a reminder, Trump's growing threats to strip broadcast licenses send chills across the industry. Broadcast television licensing is not ordinarily a hot topic during a presidential election, but Trump's threats are not ordinary either. In the past 2 years, Trump has called for every major American TV news network to be punished, according to a CNN review of his speeches and social media posts. He has imprecisely but repeatedly invoked the government's licensing of broadcast TV airwaves and said on at least 15 occasions that certain licenses should be revoked. His anti-broadcasting broadsides against CBS, ABC, NBC, and even Fox, on occasion, are almost always in reaction to interview questions he dislikes or programming he detests. And again, we have a litany of examples that we have discussed over the years. It's just a fact. No candidate has ever said the shit against the media that Trump has said and has threatened to do. Now, again, this is no longer empty rhetoric. The rhetoric was bad enough, but he is actually making good on this, courtesy of this guy right here, Brendan Carr, who was a member of the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. And I want you to hear what he had to say just a couple of weeks ago, really, because he was nominated by Trump to lead the FCC after Trump won the election. Here's what Brendan Carr had to say on Fox News about the media.
FCC do to help legacy media?
There's a lot the FCC can do. Broadcasters are differently situated than other speakers. They get free access to a valuable public resource, the airwaves, and they're licensed by the FCC. And the exchange for that is they have to serve the public interest. I think it's important that we take another look at that and we reinvigorate it. There's also a news distortion complaint at the FCC still having to do with CBS, and CBS has a transaction before the FCC. And I'm pretty confident that that news distortion complaint over the CBS 60 Minutes transcript is something that's likely to arise in the context of the FCC's review of that transaction.
So again, to be very clear, in layman's terms, he is suggesting that the government should play a role in scrutinizing what the general public service is. And he mentions CBS by name in a complaint against CBS that Trump has echoed. Remember, Trump has specifically targeted CBS and NBC and MSNBC and others. So here's where the rubber meets the road. Trump's FCC is investigating NPR and PBS stations over sponsorships. NPR and PBS have also been targeted at various points by Donald Trump. Brendan Carr, the Federal Communications Commission's new chairman, on Wednesday ordered an investigation into the sponsorship practices of NPR and PBS member stations. In a letter obtained by CNN, Carr said, quote, he was concerned that NPR and PBS broadcasts could be violating federal law by airing commercials. Quote, in particular, it's possible that NPR and PBS member stations are broadcasting underwriting announcements that cross the line into prohibited commercial advertisements. Carr wrote in the letter, which was sent to NPR Chief Executive Catherine Maher and PBS President and Chief Executive Paula Kerger. NPR and PBS programming is aired to a network of around 1,500 member stations, all of which choose which programs to broadcast. The stations require licenses approved by the FCC to operate, and these licenses limit them as non-commercial educational broadcast stations, which are prohibited by federal law from airing advertisements. The FCC's investigation will probe the underwriting announcements and policies of NPR's PBS, as well as their broadcast stations. In a statement, Maher emphasized that the radio broadcaster and its member stations have complied with FCC regulations. Quote, we are confident any review of our programming and underwriting practices will confirm NPR's adherence to these rules. PBS likewise defended its compliance with FCC standards, saying in a statement that it has worked, quote, diligently to comply with the FCC's underwriting regulations. Carr also sent a letter to congressional lawmakers, noting the investigation, quote, may prove relevant to an ongoing legislative debate over whether, quote, to stop requiring taxpayers to subsidize NPR and PBS programming. Quote, To the extent that these taxpayer dollars are being used to support a for-profit endeavor or an entity that is airing commercial advertisements, then that would further undermine any case for continuing to fund NPR and PBS with taxpayer dollars, he wrote. An investigation was first reported by the New York Times. Again, bear with me, because as we go through this, it's going to be demonstrable that Brandon Carr has a very biased interpretation on what sort of media networks he's going to scrutinize, and it's going to sound very familiar. The FCC's probe echoes Donald Trump's attacks on news organizations whose reporting he takes issue with. Last week, the FCC chair reversed 11th-hour decisions from his predecessor to dismiss complaints that had been brought against local CBS, ABC, and NBC news stations. Notably, his predecessor also dismissed a complaint that had blocked a Philly-based Fox division's license renewal, a decision Carr did not reverse. Quote, "We don't have the luxury of doing anything other than making very, very clear that this agency and its licensing authority should not be weaponized in a way that is fundamentally at odds with the First Amendment." Trump's ire at the press is nothing new, as part of retaliation against those who he believes has wronged him. On the campaign trail, he repeatedly took aim at news publishers. For example, in March, he slapped ABC News and George Stephanopoulos with a lawsuit that they settled for $15 million. And in November, he sued CBS over the network's 60 Minutes interview with then Vice President Kamala Harris. Okay, so again, this is the big part, okay, now that we've reached the end of it. So the Biden administration blocked complaints against, yes, CBS, yes, ABC, yes, NBC, but also Fox. And their rationale was, listen, we have to be super cautious, even against Fox, because what we don't want to do is violate the First Amendment and give a chilling effect on free speech. Even though, again, Biden was president, his candidate was the FCC chair, so it could have been easy for Biden to say, yeah, let CBS, ABC, and NBC pass, but you better crush Fox News. Instead, the Biden FCC chair made a principled blanket decision that spared Fox as well. Brendan Carr comes in and says, know what? I'm also going to spare Fox, but we're going to go after CBS, ABC, and NBC, three networks that Donald Trump has threatened by name repeatedly in public. So why am I talking about this? You might think, well, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal because the FCC is a federal government organ with extraordinary power. And we are, 10 days into the Trump administration? So this is fresh. This is surgical. Oh, yeah, the more conservative news network that I actually just appeared on myself and that Trump likes for the most part, certainly more than ABC, CBS, and NBC. Yeah, we're gonna ignore those complaints. Yeah, we're gonna keep that decision. That was good for Biden to ignore that one. But the three of the networks that Trump has specifically targeted for retribution, we are going to restore those complaints. So as I said on Twitter, and Biden's FCC chair dismissed complaints against CBS, NBC, and Fox News on the basis that they chill free speech. Trump's FCC chair reinstated the complaints against CBS and NBC, networks Trump has repeatedly threatened, but not Fox. Again, former FCC chair under Biden dismissed those complaints along with one against Fox, arguing they would have a chilling effect on free speech. Carr reinstated the ones except for Fox. So my other response was, quote, it's just rhetoric. Hit me up when they take action, say the MAGA reply guys about Trump's threats against the media he doesn't like. We now have official action, and I assure you, they won't care because they don't have free speech principles. They just hate liberals. And folks, that's the truth. Catherine Rampell wrote a really good Washington Post op-ed which dives into this. I wish I spent more time on that, but I don't want to drag this video out. But it explores the hypocrisy of Trump and the MAGA movement collectively and the Republican Party collectively on its free speech bona fides. They say that they're the party of free speech and free expression. That's just not true. And by the way, I say this about everybody, left and right. Anybody who tells you that they're a free speech absolutist like Elon Musk is either really stupid, really dishonest. One of the two. It can't be any other explanation. There is no such thing as a free speech absolutist. We have never been a free speech absolutist country, nation, or society. We have always used social pressure and even legal pressure to at least make some exceptions. You can't threaten people. You can't defame people. There are potential government retaliation. Like if you threaten people, you could go to jail. That's the government. Defamation, libel, you can be sued civilly and the state will facilitate the extraction of funds, right? You may not go to jail, but you'll have to pay. We have always made exceptions. We always say there are some things you can't say and do. Sorry. The only question is, where do you draw the line? And the point of MAGA and Trump and the Republican Party is they are gerrymandering that line around liberals. So again, it's okay for Fox to do crazy shit, right? It's okay for Fox to do complaint-worthy things. And we're not going to facilitate that complaint because we don't want to infringe on Fox News' free speech rights. But ABC, CBS, NBC, more liberal networks, well, fuck their free speech rights, fuck their free expression rights, fuck their First Amendment. We can do whatever we want because they have the power. It's not about principle. It was never about principle. It was about power. The Biden administration took a principled approach and said, listen, there are complaints against all of them. We got to dismiss all of them because we don't want to chill free speech. That was a much more principled position than this. But Brendan Carr has never been principled. Donald Trump has never been principled. MAGA has never been principled in this respect. It is about taking power and then leveraging it to crush the opposition. And that is precisely why they don't deserve to be trusted with power. They should have never been entrusted with power in the first place. But unfortunately, they have it now. And the only question is, what are they going to do with the power they have? But reinstating complaints against liberal networks, I use that very loosely, protecting complaints and protecting the conservative network from complaints, while also launching investigations into PBS and NPR, which you have also criticized as being too liberal, and Donald Trump has also threatened. It's not looking good, folks. It's not looking good. And we're only 10, 11 days in. Yikes. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.